We are a game into the preseason. It is officially that time of year. Football is right around the corner, and that means fantasy football is right around the corner. So today, we're going to start off our Mock Draft Monday series over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have some mock drafts here on the channel. We're going to go over a regular fantasy draft, just in your regular leagues, 10-team league. And then we're also going to go over Dynasty as well. So we're going to jump straight into this first fantasy draft. I'm using Sleeper for these mock drafts. We're going to start out, I think we're going to go as team number 4. We're going to start somewhere kind of in the middle to draft with and see how it goes. So hopefully next week we're going to have Ray on this to join us and go through a couple of mock drafts. I'm going to start here with a normal 10-team league mock draft, and then we're going to move to a Dynasty mock draft. I'm not 100% sure how that works within this app, so we'll figure it out together. But if I'm going to be able, or if I'm just going to go off of the picks that I have, because personally, I've traded off most of my picks. I just have 2 first-round picks, and that is it. Which personally, my philosophy in the Dynasty, try to move up and get as much as you can early, and don't worry about the rest of the draft. Because personally, I hold on to too many players, probably Dynasty League wise. But let's get this thing kicked off. We are going to claim team number 4, and we're going to get this thing started. All right, so we kick off, and we see Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and Jahmyr Gibbs go on the first 3. Solid. I think that lands us Jamar Chase. I think that's the smartest pick here at number 4. I mean, that's actually pretty solid. We're going to go Jamar Chase right here. Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb, Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra, Malik Neighbors. I don't know if I'm that high on Amon-Ra St. Brown this year. Just without Ben Johnson, I'm not sure what this team, or at least their offense, looks like. Okay, so we got Nico Collins, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs. This is an interesting pick right here. I think we can drafting a quarterback in round 2 is a little insane. So I don't think that we're going to go there yet, especially without a running back. Let's look where we're going to go with this. I don't know. I do think that Ashton Jeanty already went to Team 10. Devon Achane, I think, is an interesting pick, and for him to be as high up as he is, I think I'm going to skip over Achane, though, here, and we're going to go with, let me double check and just see kind of, I don't know. I like Bucky Irving. Here. So let's go Bucky Irving. We got Jamar Chase and Bucky Irving so far. Josh Allen does go at the end of round 2. Now we are back on the clock. Trey McBride is an interesting pick right here. We still have a few interesting guys left up on the board right now at this pick. Chase Brown is another one that I like. Good receiving threat. Lamar Jackson would be a good pick right here. If we don't go quarterback here, probably going to be at least like a tier 2, tier 3 quarterback that we're going to end up with, which I'm okay with. I think that you can plug and play quarterbacks. So let's go. I want to go running back again here. Trey McBride is an interesting pick, though. Do we go Trey McBride? We're going to go with Trey McBride. We'll go with the hype. He had so much hype coming into last season, it feels like. And he was solid. He was solid, but I don't know how great, Trey McBride was in the grand scheme of things. So now we've got another interesting selection. And I think for fantasy purposes, I think we're going to get our quarterback. With Jalen Hurts. Good fantasy quarterback, snipes a lot of touchdowns right at the goal line. So we've got a receiver, we've got a running back, we got a tight end, and we got a quarterback already. So we can start working on our second picks on positions. I don't know if I really like Alvin Kamara in this situation. DK Metcalf is an interesting one just because he's going to be the number one now over there in Pittsburgh. But I like Chuba Hubbard right here. I think that's where we're going to go with this pick. So we got 2 running backs now. We got both of our starters. I think past that, you can kind of, waiver wire pickups. And now we're kind of looking for another receiver, a flex, something we can do here. Xavier Worthy. Okay, so I'm going to preface this with I try not to pick Chiefs just because I know how the Chiefs offense moves and the fact that who knows whose week it is, week in, week out, right? But I think Xavier Worthy here is a good pick. Like I was just talking about, Amon-Ra, I'm not huge on early just because I don't know what this offense looks like without Ben Johnson. And is it going to be as good? Is it going to flow as well? Now with Johnny Morton in there as the offensive coordinator. Fun fact, not the same Johnny Morton that I was thinking of originally as a Chiefs fan. Johnny Morton, who was a Detroit Lions receiver for a long time and then moved to the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of his career. Not the same guy. But we're going to go with Xavier Worthy here. Like I said, I try to kind of stay away from Chiefs in fantasy football just because it feels like they're very much a rotating door when it comes to fantasy football. So now we have an interesting selection because I like Travion Henderson right here. Waddle, Olave, Addison, all 3 of those guys, I'm not the highest on. Feels like Jalen Waddle's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last few years. Olave, kind of the same thing, doesn't really have a quarterback. And then you got Jordan Addison, who's going to have to serve a 3-game suspension, which I have him on my Dynasty League. So something I'm going to have to deal with. We're going to go Travion Henderson here. I think a solid flex, see what he's got for the season. Tony Pollard going, that is an interesting pick, I think, with Tony Pollard. Just for the simple fact that I can't remember who's in front of him, but he got injured. So now, it's once you get to these middle rounds, it starts to get really interesting because I somewhat expect Travis Kelce to have a what am I trying to say? I don't want to say a comeback year, but, I think he's going to have a good year. Maybe not a great year. I mean, he's 35 now. But I do think that Travis Kelce is highly motivated this year. Even just watching that first preseason game and how he was playing, he had a couple of really good blocks, believe it or not, in that first preseason game. Obviously the Chiefs only played the 3 plays from their starting offense. But I think we'll go Calvin Ridley here. I think there's more upside with Calvin Ridley. Although Caleb Johnson is a guy that I really like, especially in Dynasty. Caleb Johnson is a guy I'm kind of trying to angle for towards the end of the first round of my draft personally. You think Najee Johnson, he just left for L.A. There's a lot of carries to be had there in Pittsburgh. They like to run the ball. I think that the rookie Caleb Johnson is a good pick. But with that being said, I think he's a really good pick for Dynasty. We're going to go Calvin Ridley right here. Maybe he has a breakout season with Cam Ward now being the quarterback. And we are back on the clock now. We already have a quarterback, so there's no need to get Baker, although I think that's a decent option for a fantasy football quarterback this season. Jonnu Smith and Jacoby Myers, both available. Travis Etienne, Cooper Kupp in Seattle. How's he going to look this year in Seattle? Brandon Ayuk coming off of injury might be an interesting pick. Stefon Diggs, I don't know if I love that pick. Maybe a little bit later. Matthew Golden is an interesting pick at this point in the draft, but I think what we're going to stick with, I don't know, this top few. Let's look at our team one more time. We got a little over a minute. So we've got 3 receivers, 3 running backs, 1 tight end already. I don't love trying to go for Mark Andrews here. Now, Jonnu Smith, I think, is an interesting pick here, but do we want to go with the second tight end already? I think it would be better to stash a guy that could play in our flex position here over another tight end, Brian Robinson isn't a bad pick either, especially in that offense. I don't know how much Eckler is going to be involved. So let's get Brian Robinson here. I do think I like that pick. Tank Bigsby, too, for Jacksonville was more of a goal line threat last season. So I think that kind of takes away from Travis Etienne a little bit. And you look, Etienne fell all the way to Team 7 in this next round. So now I don't like Jaden Reed. I had him on my Dynasty team. I wasn't a fan. But it's interesting. You look 5 spots ahead of Matthew Golden, who may end up being the wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. Also have Josh Downs, but I don't know. Anything Colts related is hard to kind of go with at this point, just for the simple fact that who's their quarterback? Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson? Either one, not great, realistically. So let's go with Matthew Golden here. I like him better than Jaden Reed in this situation, just because I've dealt with Jaden Reed on my Dynasty team, and it's hit or miss every single week. So we're going to go Matthew Golden and just kind of bank on the rookie in this draft. Next up, Cam Scatterbo. That's an interesting pick right there. That could be Tyler Warren. Now I know I just said that anything Colts related I'm not really too keen on, but for our backup tight end, I don't think Tyler Warren is a bad pickup. So let's rock with Tyler Warren right here. And now we got 2 tight ends. So we're good at tight end. And we've got, 4 picks left to figure out what we are going to go with. Ooh. Emeka Egbuka. I thought for sure I was going to mess that up. Keon Coleman doesn't seem like a bad pick either. We got a couple of guys right here. Jordan Mason, I don't know how involved he's going to be in that offense for Minnesota. Okay, let's go Egbuka here. I do like that pick, the rookie receiver for Tampa Bay. Also missing Liam Hendricks as their offensive coordinator, so that one also going to be interesting to see how the Bucs offense rolls with. And I think that sets us up for a solid pick for our backup QB. Like I said, I think you can kind of stream backup or, just quarterbacks in general, kind of defenses. I feel the same way. But I do feel pretty good about this team that we have going right now. So I think that we're going to go ahead and go with, this is kind of my thought process from this spot on, is obviously we need a kicker and defense left. So this is probably our last pick for a position player. With that being said, I almost want to go Tank Bigsby just to have somebody maybe we can throw in there. He has a good week here and there or a good matchup. But for the sake of rounding out this team, filling out this team, we're going to go with our backup quarterback, and that's going to be Jordan Love in this situation. And now, obviously, this draft probably going to be focused on defense and kickers. So a lot of these defenses going. So let's look now what we have for defense. Baltimore Ravens defense, I think, would be solid. Let's see what we got with kickers. I mean, we could go ahead and just take the best kicker available, which is Brandon Aubrey. So I do. What am I trying to say here? I do like having. I do like the thought of going kicker right here. I think that we're going to go kicker because another one that I think that you can streamline or just stream week in, week out is defenses. And I would rather stream a defense over a kicker just because, I mean, if you have a solid kicker week in, week out, I mean, it does pay dividends. I'm going to go ahead and just take the homer pick. We're going to go with the Chiefs defense. I believe in the Chiefs defense. We can stream week in, week out, though. But I do like this draft. I think this is a pretty good draft, actually. We end up going Jamar Chase, number 1 overall with the team. We had Bijan, Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs go first 3. Had Jamar Chase fall to us. Bucky Irving at running back. Trey McBride at tight end. I think Jalen Hurts is a solid pick for a fantasy quarterback. Like I said, he gets a lot of, snipes the running back a lot. Snipes Saquon you see up there. But then going Chuba Hubbard, I think, is a solid backup running back that we've got. He can start. Travion Henderson is yet to be seen. Obviously, a rookie in the league with New England, who is probably going to be their running back one, I believe. And Calvin Ridley, I think, another solid pick. I think a solid team up and down. Is it Tyler Warren? Ty Warren? Tyler Warren. I think that might be sneaky. And like I said, I wanted to stay away from Colts just because who's their quarterback. But a universal loved option by a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of quarterbacks that aren't that great would be a tight end. So I do think that tight end position may be useful in Indy. And he's our backup. So, we might only need him for a bye week unless Trey McBride were to get hurt. Egbuka, I think, is a very solid pick. Might end up really, being a solid weapon in that Tampa Bay offense. Again, we've got time to see kind of where Golden and Egbuka develop with Jamar Chase at the number one wide receiver, then also having Worthy and Ridley. Got some buffer space in between the two rookies to kind of see what they can produce. Brandon Aubrey, the best kicker available in the draft that we picked up. So I think solid. Jordan Love's the backup quarterback. I think another solid get right there. There, if Hurts has a bad matchup that week, you can go to Jordan Love. If Jordan Love has a better matchup, and I think you can kind of change them out. Maybe not going to get as many, rushing points for Jordan Love and the Packers as you would with Jalen Hurts, but all in all, solid draft. Let me know in the comments below, though, who my guys are for this year. I'm still kind of playing around with this, and like I said, we're going to get to Dynasty, and that's really the main, fantasy football team that I play. I did play a couple last year. I actually played an IDP league for the first time last year. Can't say that I was too great or too involved in that all year. As like I said, I focus on the Dynasty side. So actually drafting a team and thinking about this for the year is an interesting exercise for me. All right, so next up, we have the Dynasty draft loaded up. This is from my league of record. And so we're going to go through this. I think it's only going to let me pick my picks, which is 1 and 10 is what I have. Shout out to you, boy. Won the championship last year. Also was able to secure that number 1 overall pick. So let's get straight into this. I'm kind of just going to, I guess we'll just see where we want to go. Or, what we want to do with this. But I already know where I'm going with this number 1 pick. Ashton Genty is my number 1 pick. Omarion Hampton, Tat McMillan, Travis Hunter, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins. I think Harvey's a good pick. Ooh, and Caleb Johnson goes right in front of us. So now, this is an interesting situation for me if this was to play out, because that Caleb Johnson is who I would like to get with this 10th pick. And after that, I'm not 100% sure where I go. I think getting another receiver wouldn't be bad. Cam Scatterbo, I think, is a solid pick at this point. But where I think I'm going with this, if this were to happen, is Egbuka, who we just got in our last mock draft. I think I'd go with here too, get another receiver. I do have quite a bit of receivers here, but that's where we're going to go and watch how the rest of this board unfolds. I think that Egbuka is a solid pick. And like I said, I traded all of my later round picks. Hey, it's first round or nothing for me personally in these dynasty drafts. I think is a good way to kind of play it. A kicker going is very interesting in this mock draft. A couple of kickers we get there. A lot of tight ends on the board as well. Shador going in the 3rd round with one of my traded picks there is interesting. Jalen Milroe. That was right after Shador. No, that would have been before Shador. Jalen Milroe before Shador is kind of crazy, especially in a fantasy sense where I think Shador has a much greater chance of starting right off the bat rather than Jalen Milroe. I mean, maybe you're playing down the road. We also have Taxi Squad enabled, so a lot of these guys, like last year, I think Marvin Harrison spent most of the year on my Taxi Squad. pretty much the whole year on my taxi squad. So as well as Caleb Williams, I think I started Caleb Williams one game, who I picked up. That was my draft last year. I had 2 first-round picks, and that was it. I got Caleb Williams. I got Marvin Harrison. I also had the first overall pick last year. I haven't been the worst team yet, though, in the Dynasty. So, just make those smart trades out there when you're playing in the Dynasty League. But I think this is pretty solid. I think Harvey is another very solid pickup. I'm trying to go running back heavy in this draft personally, just because my running back situation isn't great per se. James Cook is my top back that I have currently on my Dynasty team. So, Egbuka and Genty isn't bad, I don't think. Ashton Genty is obviously going to be my number 1 pick. I've already told the league, hey, this is who's going number 1, so you guys can figure it out after that. And we draft in, 2 weeks, I think now? It's 12 days away from our draft. So I don't know when you guys draft. Let me know in the comments below where you guys feel like is a good spot to draft. But I think it's perfect now the way the league made the preseason, where we get 3 weeks of preseason, then we get a bye week before the season starts. There's your draft week right there. That's fantasy draft week easily. I would think. I mean, unless you're just itching and dying to get in there, go and do some mock drafts. If you're just dying to draft a team, don't go in there and draft your team super early. But, to each their own. Personally, that's my thought process on it. But again, like I said, let me know in the comments below who your my guys are in this year's draft, whether it be Dynasty or just a regular fantasy league you're drafting from scratch. And yeah, let me know. Hit that like button if you enjoy this. We'll be back next Monday with another mock draft, going through Dynasty as well as just a regular mock draft. And hit that subscribe button for me if you enjoy the content. Got plenty of Chiefs film breakdowns still to come. We're going to break down this preseason opener and get ready for this new season. So I am on the road to 500 subscribers, trying to hit that before the NFL season starts. We are getting very close. I think we can do it. But until next week, I'll see you in the next mock draft.